President Chin, we're ready to begin.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, March 1st. We are now starting our special session on first order of business, or not special meeting. First order of business is our flag salute, please. Diana, if we could have a flag and everyone repeat after me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. And before we actually go to the roll call, Trustee Corzo, would you mind doing a Spanish language translation, please?
Sure, no problem. Bienvenidos. Si alguien ocupa traducción, por favor, levanten la mano y también pueden empujar el icono en la pantalla del mundo para recibir la traducción. Gracias.
All right, thank you, Trustee Corzo. And actually, we will go straight to roll call. Trustee Corzo.
Here.
Trustee Proctor.
I'm here.
Trustee Warren.
Here.
And Trustee Watkins.
Here.
And I'm here as well. So let the record reflect that we are all here. Next is our approval of our agenda. Do we have a motion for, anyone want to make a motion for a short agenda here?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins. We have a first and second. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. We are now on to public statements. This is a special meeting, so we tend to have all of our public statements right up at the beginning. We will have probably 3 minutes for each speaker. So Diane, if you wouldn't mind requesting for public comment.
Yes, to our attendees, if you would like to make a public comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand now. President Chin, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I will officially close public comment for this item. So next on our agenda is actually the execution of the contract with McPherson Jacobson. As of the last meeting that we had last week, we did select McPherson Jacobson. However, we didn't actually give authorization to any one of us to enter into the contract. So I believe the recommendation is that if we need actual vote to allow the execution of this contract signed by one of us, probably me, to actually sign and enter into the contract. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Does anyone want to make a motion? Sorry, I can't talk right now.
I motion to designate President Chin as the point of contact to sign the contract.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Thank you, and I will vote yes as well. I will sign that contract immediately, and therefore we will be officially under contract with McPherson Jacobson. The next item is we're going to turn it directly over to our consultant. We just did the Spanish language translation. Diane, do you think we still need to keep Joan?
Let's do that one more time. Si
Sure.
hay alguien que necesita traducción, por favor, levante la mano. Si hay alguien aquí que necesita traducción en español, por favor, levante la mano. If there's anyone who needs Spanish translation, would you raise your hand?
No, there's no hands raised at this time. If it's okay, we'll dismiss our translator, and if we need her to return, we can go ahead and have that happen.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you, Kenya.
thank you, Kenya.
Thank you, and I'll be ready if you need me to jump back in.
Okay, we're moving right on to the consultants, please. Aida and Nicole, I see you guys are here. And we'll let you take the reins.
Okay. One of the first things I want to do is if Diane could please share the PowerPoint I created. It outlines in PowerPoint mode the calendar for the search. So if I can have that displayed. Okay, today's objectives, and I always fall back on my teaching mode, is to set the calendar, to identify the selection criteria, to discuss advertising media, establish the point of contact, identify the stakeholder groups for interviewing, identify community members that will receive a personal invite phone call from one of the consultants, and your board member contact information. I know I sent information requesting this last week toward the end of the week, and some of you have sent it to me, so I'm going to be putting that together. Next slide. Okay, in March, the following are things that would happen. We'd start advertising the position on March 8th. From March 10th through the 19th, we'd have stakeholder Zoom meetings. March 11th and 17th, we'd have evening English community meetings. More than likely, they would begin at 7. On March 16th, I would hold the Spanish community meeting at 7. And still to be determined, because we'll be working with our point of contact, are the meetings for administrators, both site and district level, classified staff, certificated staff. And many times we also meet or speak to the union presidents for both classified and certificated, the civic groups that you'd like us to speak to, parent groups, the PTA, school site council, ELAC, DLAC, and also students. More than likely it would be your 8th grade students. That would happen between March 10th and March 19th. We're looking at the possibility of anywhere between 10 to 20 Zoom meetings that we would hold in that time period. We normally don't hold them on Fridays, and we will have a few on Mondays. It all depends on the availability of the groups and also the time frames. Sometimes because people are working, your teachers are still working, we would look to have Zoom meetings with them after 3:30. Same thing with administrators, or if they have an administrative meeting, you know, we like to hook up with them on those meetings. Then on March 25th, in open session, we would provide an executive summary of the stakeholder meetings. That means we consolidate the information that we heard and provide you with 1-page, 2-page summary of what all the different groups had brought in common. Then we'd also discuss the interview procedures, like you want to hold a stakeholder interview panel. Do you want to have an open session where you ask questions in a very open meeting? That still has to be determined. And we would do that in March. We appoint a stakeholder interview committee if that's where you're headed. And then in closed session, we discuss interview questions and compensation package. If you can give us like the parameters of what that compensation is going to look like. That could either be done on the 25th or between then and now. In April, next slide. Okay, the applications close on April 6th. You have a board meeting on April 22nd, and in this board meeting, in closed session, we will review the candidates, you select finalists, you finalize the candidate daily interview schedule and the district interview schedule. So for example, the candidate may have coffee and lunch or breakfast with 2 of the different board members, then they interview with the stakeholder panel, and then they interview with you in the afternoon. So that's something that we still have to discuss. Hopefully by April, many of us will have already received our COVID vaccine. So we will continue to keep the mask and whatnot, but I think the fear of COVID-19, hopefully we'll have the vaccinations on that. And then April, looking at interviews, it could either take place April 29th and 30th, which is a Friday and Saturday, or May 6th or 7th. That's all contingent on the board. And I think that's the last slide. Oh no, May. The May 6th and 7th, the alternative dates for interviews. And then at your regularly scheduled meeting, this is the only meeting that can't change. You would appoint the new superintendent. And the superintendent would start July 1st, is the start date for your superintendent. The March and April dates, those are regular board meetings for you, but you can have them on different days. I mean, I've only added them to your regular meetings because I'm not sure the board's availability. I know now that you have these already scheduled, so it's not like adding more meetings, but then it would extend the time in your regular meetings. So you can have these, say, on other Thursdays when you don't have a regular board meeting, or you can have them a different day of the week. You can have them start at 5 o'clock. You know, it depends on what the board wishes. So that's it for this PowerPoint. Okay, so tell me what you think. Do you want to keep the schedule as it is, or do you want to modify the March or April date?
So I know we jumped right into this. One concern just on the one date that I have is on March 11th. We do have a school board meeting on that night. I kind of think that, I mean, you know, when unfortunately we can't time everything, but, you know, obviously the next couple of weeks with us returning to in-person learning is very touchy time at the moment. And I'm wondering whether or not some people who might want to attend the superintendent search meeting or community meeting might also want to attend the board meeting. And so
would you like us to change that to March 10th on Wednesday?
That would be my recommendation. I don't know if the rest of the board has the same feeling. I just feel like that is a, could be, someone might want to be at both meetings.
No, that's fine. March 10th then? Okay.
Can you clarify your time?
I would probably start the meetings at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. Those are for the community meetings. The other meetings we still have to schedule because it's contingent on when groups are available. A lot of times we have them during the day, say for your classified staff, maybe during the, 12 to 1, your teachers, 3:30 to 4:30, your students during a time frame when the students are in school so that they can go on to a Zoom meeting. Your ELAC, DLAC, I don't know what time they meet or what days they meet, but working with the point of contact, I've established those dates. Those have yet to be established.
So I don't want to just monopolize this, but I just have another question. Do we have within the schedule an opportunity to have sort of a more broader reach sort of community sort of online survey?
Oh yes, the online survey will be scheduled from the time March 10th through March 9th, March probably 18th. Or, yeah, no, I unless you want me to start it on March 8th, which is before we do the stakeholder meetings, we could do it from March 8th through March 18th.
So again, I don't want to be the one talking, but I would just, my thought is that I would want to give the community, as much time as possible, and so whether that we start that earlier or whether we start that, you know, and keep it for open for a longer period of time. I just think we'd want to make sure that we have full opportunity for the community to provide comments
Okay.
at their
So
leisure.
what I'll do, because it's not listed on here, I'll write it from March 8th through March 18th. We'll have the online survey. And it'll be open. We'll give the link to the district, and then they can post it on their district, on your district website. Okay.
Just quick clarification, did we clarify all the languages? Was it specific, just Spanish, English, or did we have a third language with possibly Mandarin, or were we keeping those two main
English and Spanish.
languages?
What does the board wish?
We don't actually send a ton of things out in Mandarin.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I would think that it would just be Spanish and English.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, Diane, sorry, Noelle, do you want to jump in?
I just wanted to say, like, if we're having 2 English meetings, I think we should try to have 2 Spanish meetings, and just like really work on the outreach to make sure that they're, you know, that they're well attended would be great, but at least, like, you know, attended, period.
I was also, just to kind of back on, and I know that this will come up as we think about other stakeholder groups, because there are some kind of, you know, district committees that can tap into that. But in addition to thinking about our community partners, and I know Dr. Rosas can get a list, but I think as much as we can, like leaning into spaces and times where there are groups that are hard to reach that are already meeting. And so I think as much as we can to leverage our community partners for kind of things like that, getting out surveys and whether, you know, hard copies, you know, I know that many of our community partners are already tapped into, you know, members of our community that are harder to reach. And so I think just leveraging that as much as possible. I mean, I think it's really important to ensure that we have a wide representation of voices.
I would also ask, let's not forget the CDAP committee.
Yeah, it's listed on the second page, ELAC, DLAC.
I'm talking about the special ed committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. And if there's any other like special groups, I think, don't you have like maybe an equity committee?
Equity task force.
Yeah, equity.
Sanctuary task
if you-
force. Yeah, there's a bunch of committees, district ones.
So if you give us that and provide those names to us, then we can go ahead and set a schedule and send it to our point of contact. And that way they can send it to those individuals that belong to those groups via email, and we'll try to reach as many of them as possible.
I have a question just about that piece. I just, like, I know I sent like a couple names of groups and folks, and I think like for the individual specifically, I can definitely provide the contact information. But I'm just wondering, because I'm sure some of us have sent like the same groups, and I know those are being consolidated. Would it just be more efficient for Ada, for you to like send the list that you have consolidated to our board secretary and our board assistant, and have her like input the contact info?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Are there any other concerns about any of the meetings? And your meetings start at 7 in the evening?
6:30 are board meetings.
6:30?
For board meetings.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure I include that on here, because once I finish with these edits, I'll make sure and send a copy of the completed calendar that you feel okay with, so that it's posted on your website.
Just one thing, I know we wanted to talk about finish talking about the calendar and sort of move on to your next bullet point, but the April 22nd meeting,
Mhm.
which is our regularly scheduled meeting. I know you have here, in closed session, we would be talking about reviewing the candidates and selecting the finalists. Generally speaking, we usually have about an hour's worth of a closed session materials before our board meeting. Do you feel like, in your experience, do boards need more than an hour or not? Because that I'm wondering whether or not we move that closed session or that review of candidates off to another day, or whether we all commit to basically, if we have to start at 1 o'clock, we start at 1 o'clock, or what.
That all depends. So if it's an in-person, like say by April, you're conducting person-to-person kind of meetings, or if they're still via Zoom, then if it's via Zoom, I send you the information online, via email. You get copies of the applications, you get copies of the video that the candidates have created, the resumes and letters of reference. So you can all view that ahead of time and then kind of make a decision of who you'd like to be on your finalist list. How many of them you'd like to interview in person to person. And that would mean it does, I'm going to say it does take more than an hour. Nicole, you can agree with me. So
Yeah.
it's actually a 2-hour process, only because you're really looking at the candidates and trying to make a decision. We also go over the candidates that we didn't bring forward, and we tell you why we didn't bring them forward. So, I mean, and then you might say, well, I know this person, why aren't you bringing this person forward? We want to interview this person. So, and we will do that. We'll bring forward any name that of the candidates that you deem that you want to interview.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Nicole.
Well, to answer your question about would it be better to have it as a separate meeting versus like incorporate into your closed session, and then it sounds like you'd have another meeting after that. It's going to be a long day. So I think for your mindsets to really be clear and just focus on this very important decision, it's always my recommendation to do that as a whole separate meeting. And I think if you don't, then it's going to be a long day, and after a while it's a tough one. So that would be my recommendation. It works a little bit better that way. But I know you've done it a couple of different ways. Yeah.
Considering that we normally, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we do need to address sort of in closed sessions. I would sort of recommend to the board that we maybe have that on a separate day, just because of, what we all know we deal with in closed session. So.
Would you be open to meeting on Friday, the 23rd?
I mean, I am. It's up to the rest of the board.
At what time?
Well, this would be in closed session, right? So,
Mhm.
Okay. So
Right.
it's up
March
to the board.
23rd or April, sorry, April 23rd.
April.
April 23rd. Yeah, that works for me. Afternoon would be better because I'm sure we'll have a long meeting and be tired.
Yes, that's quite possible.
Do you want to do, say, on that Friday at 1 o'clock, beginning at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock?
That works for me. I don't know if anyone else.
Anytime works for me that day.
It works for me, but the later the better.
2 o'clock?
Yeah, I'm good either way.
Okay, then why don't we move then the April 22nd meeting to April 23rd to begin at 2 o'clock. And I can always create the Zoom meeting and send you the link to that Zoom meeting. Would you like me to do that? Yes?
I guess as a point of clarification, Dr. Rose,
It's
is
gonna
to
have
do,
to be posted, so we can
So we need to
set
do
it
it.
up.
Okay,
yeah, yes.
I mean,
okay,
Thank you.
it is the whole board, correct?
Yep.
And
yes,
it's a closed session and it would have to be posted.
okay,
So our handling the Zoom is probably easiest.
okay.
I don't have any other comments about the calendar. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in or if everything's fine.
I mean, if we're gonna add another Spanish meeting, should we just pick a date for that now so that it's set?
Yes, what day? Do you want to do it on Monday, let's see. The 15th? We can have it then, Monday and Tuesday would be the Spanish days, and then,
What are the English days again?
the 10th and the 17th.
I think if we could space them out like a week apart, like that, like the same way, I think that'd be good. Versus like next day.
Okay, we have the English on the 10th. How do you think it would work if we had the English and Spanish on the same night?
Like the same meeting or just different times?
2 different times. Like, okay, say like Nicole would run the community meeting in English at 7, and then I would run the Spanish one at a different Zoom link for the Spanish speaking community on the 10th. Do you think it would work? I'm asking.
So I'm sorry, just for clarification, you're recommending or you're suggesting the Spanish and the English community meeting be held at exactly the same time. They're just at two separate moderators with 2 separate Zoom links. Is that
Right.
what you?
Or
I don't necessarily have an opposition to that, but
would it be too confusing? Because right now, okay, we have, well, I guess the other alternative we could do is have the Spanish one on the 9th and the 16th, kind of mirroring the English, which is the 10th and 17th. Noelia?
I like that better, but I don't know how everyone else feels about it.
I think that sounds great. At the same time too, I'm just wondering, would it be better to try to bring the meeting to the community? Or at least have some sort of like place within like the King Center or College Park where people who are interested in participating in the meeting for the Spanish speaking population be able to meet there as opposed to having it just completely on Zoom.
Is your county open to large groups?
No.
Okay. So we couldn't gather that many people in a large group.
And Aida, one thing that I'm curious about too is as we're kind of adding dates to the calendar, and we do have another consultant who's gonna, you met Beal as well. As we're thinking about adding more dates to the calendar, we don't have his availability as well. So it may be that as we resend these, I mean, it's not going to impact you as board members because you wouldn't necessarily be a part of the meeting, but obviously for marketing purposes, right? Like that's where we would have to coordinate. So I'm wondering if we tentatively have those and then are able to make sure that it works well too for other consultant. I'm not sure if that should be something to just kind of notate as we think about how to do those combo meetings versus separate days.
March 16th is when your equity task force.
And we
meeting.
do have a task force, yep. And I was looking at that too. And maybe the times change, but go ahead, Aida.
When is your equity task force meeting?
That's on March 16th at 7.
So I'm seeing that we have a DLAC meeting, put like a DLAC meeting on the 9th of March. So that might be a good way to like do one of the community meetings.
Okay. And what time
Good
do they meet?
idea.
What time does the DLAC ELAC meeting meet?
So Joan, if you could help us confirm, I just have it as like a placeholder. It says save the date DAC DLAC in my calendar from 5
Yeah.
to 6:30.
I'll check.
Okay.
See. It may take a minute, so if you want to go ahead and look at other things.
Okay. Since I'm the one that would be conducting the Spanish ones, I think adding the 9th shouldn't be a problem. Be more than happy to spend my birthday with the group.
No,
Yes, that's fine. It's not an issue.
no.
It's not a big birthday anyway.
What if we do the 8th? I don't know, but that's
But this, I still have to do ELAC, DLAC. Because that's, you know, that's an important group. Because they're representatives from all your different schools.
I just hate when people work on their birthdays.
No, that's fine. Believe me, we've all worked on our birthdays. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, and because really in reality, these, the dates for the stakeholder meetings, the Zoom meetings that we're gonna be hosting, those are meetings that I have to coordinate with Nicole and with Bill. And if I can have like when ELAC meets, when the equity team meets, when I think, oh God, where is it?
The Sanctuary Task Force?
The Sanctuary Task Force.
Sanctuary Task Force is every week. So that one's like, you got lots of opportunities for that.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put those in, and then with point of contact, I'll work with them as far as those groups go, so that we can set that calendar and have it for Nicole, myself, and Bill. And then we'll just send you a copy of when the meetings are. How's that?
DLAC is confirmed for March 9th.
And also, I don't know, Joan or Noelia and Sharp, you want to weigh in on this for the March 16th meeting with the task force. We could embed this into the agenda. It wouldn't be a problem. You know, because you also have visitors that come at times too. It might not be a bad idea. So if you would like to, we can embed it into that agenda without a problem. It's about a 45-minute kind of process to the questioning. But since it's a meeting in itself, you know, we can kind of flow within I think the agenda, and then allow that last kind of hour for them to do their subcommittee work as well. So that's an idea if you would like, just capitalize, like you said, Shar, on leveraging the group is already there. So
Right.
Does that sound okay?
That makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we'll work on, and I'll modify this and say from March 9th through the 19th, we'll hold Zoom meetings. How's that? Okay. So are you,
And just go ahead.
go ahead. I was just saying, is the group okay with this calendar with those adjustments? Yes?
Looks like everybody.
And are you asking us to come up with some times for classified and certificated and administrators?
Yes, I think that would be good, because if I give you times and they don't work out, then it's, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose.
So you would like staff to come up with times within the March 10 through 19.
Yes.
And Joan, it may be helpful up front just to know like what is an ideal time typically, considering you all are, you know, adjusting the reopening. It's still going to be virtual. So if you give us kind of a ballpark of what works well, you know, mornings versus afternoons, that would be good if you can. It may be, you know, you have to check in with some folks, but.
Or if you'd like, we can speak to the union presidents and ask them when they would like to hold the Zoom meetings. So if I have like the name of the teachers union, the president of the teachers union and classified, I can give them a phone call and ask them when.
So
would be-
we have a labor management initiative that we could probably utilize for this. So
Oh,
let
okay.
me just find out. Let me just find out.
Okay, sounds good.
It still would be a good idea to reach out to Julie and who's our new CSCA?
Alicia.
Alicia, yes, thank you. So it'd still be good to reach out to both of our labor unions. I just wanted to clarify, just as we wrap sort of the calendar up, once we've sort of solidified it, you're going to give it to us, and then we will put that on the website so people, so the community will understand what the process is and where we're going with
Okay.
everything. So,
Mhm.
okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll modify this and send you the copy that looks like this, okay? Okay. The other areas that I wanted to cover, and I want to go ahead and do it now because these won't take as much time as the criteria. I've received board information on 3 trustees, so if the others can just send me, I think it's Lisa and Shara, if you could send me the contact information, your either cell number, how long you've been on the board, and your email address that you want me to make sure I use. If it's going to be the district one, I have that because I went online and downloaded the pictures of you all and that information. So just let me know that. So I'll get that. Joan, who is going to be the point of contact? Who can I know I sent the information to Deanne.
So Diane is our PIO, but you would contact Anna Allman. That's the confidential assistant to the superintendent. And she would then determine who is best to support whatever it is you're asking.
Okay. Nicole, do you want to discuss advertising media and dates? I know I did receive from one of the board members. Where did I get it from? Noelia. I received advertised in AXA and EdCal and ALAS, as well as other venues that don't have additional costs. You already are part of EdJoin, so it's at no cost for EdJoin. Plus, it's no cost on our website, and it's no cost on the district website, because we'll go ahead and put a link so that applicants can go to those. ALAS, I believe it's under $100 for, I believe I know it's more than 30 days, but we'll put it on there and list it. And what we want to do as much as possible is add the criteria before we begin advertising, but we could advertise before we finalize the criteria. So do you have other venues you'd like? Nicole, why don't you go ahead and go through the different venues and the costs if they want to participate in that?
Yeah, so I think, just to be honest with you, they're kind of the main venues that typically we utilize that are more than sufficient. And I think like ALAS is one that would be an additional one that we don't always utilize, but definitely when you're thinking about the type of candidates you want to attract and outreach to, then that would all be depending on what your desire is. There are different organizations or associations. So ALAS is a national organization focused on Latino administrators. You also have your local kind of California, you have CASA, which is supporting African-American superintendents and administrators. You also have CALSA, which is supporting the California Latino administrators. And so those are kind of your associations when you're looking at outreach. In particular, EdCal, which is AXA. And then obviously EdJoin is a space, and then our Mac and J website. Those are the typical ones. And honestly, most don't go outside of those because I think it's more than enough. So I don't know if you want to spend that extra time. If you have additional spaces you want to, it's absolutely fine. We'll, do what you like. But those are the typical ones. I think AXA, because you have a kind of a superintendent pipeline, a natural one there, and people do look at EdCal. They go to that as like a key source to find out where jobs are. I think that one is often the best one. I think AIDA runs about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And so depending on when we get it in, it may run right away in the AXA space, or it may just take a week. It's just their cycles, but it actually works just fine. So if you all would like to, think about you want to go with just the basic format, it's really up to you what you feel is best. I know, Noelia, why don't you share a little bit about kind of your thoughts about ALAS? Because since Mac and J is a national search firm, there are touch points in other states as well. And so tell us a little more about your thoughts about ALAS in terms of outreach.
Yeah, I think that, sharing it as widely as possible is what we want to do. And those were the ones that were suggested. So I didn't know about the other ones. I think those are, maybe we want to think about I guess I'm just wondering what the average budget for this piece is for school districts in a typical search. And, maybe we all agree on all right, this is how much we want to spend on that, or we agree to just put it on everything, as long as it's under a certain amount. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. And I think if you all go back to your proposal, one of the things that we did is we placed it in there, and you probably don't have it in front of you. But when you're looking at the actual amount that we charge for the contract versus the additional expenses, that's where you get to kind of see the difference with what you don't want to exceed. And so when you're looking at the fact that, when you're talking about budget, remember, Aida and I are really not traveling because of COVID. So what that does is kind of helps, eliminate a lot of the costs that most searches would incur. I'm going to pull up your particular expense for so let me ask you this. So you all are good with ALAS? Am I hearing that correctly? And then EdCal.
Okay, right now.
And
please,
go ahead.
Included in the expense, okay, it says, if this hasn't changed, I think it's 4 weeks of print advertising EdCal for a 40-word ad, and then 60 days of advertising in EdJoin. But EdJoin you're part of. So, they'll go for the amount of time that we have the applications open. And then we do the videos, interviews for 5, but anything after that, so ALAS would be an additional expense. And I don't know what other organization you mentioned, Nicole, and I don't know what.
Yeah, CASA and CALSA, from my understanding, I haven't seen a cost that CASA has in particular in terms of the fee, because they don't have necessarily a what is it? AXA is the only one that really has an ongoing advertisement. Right. The other ones are networks, that we kind of have connections with, where they don't necessarily have fees associated with them in the same way. So your budget really wouldn't be impacted by those particular ones.
Right.
So,
and I know CALSA does not advertise anymore, which is the California
right.
Latin American administrators. But we can always reach out to them and let them know that there's a position available, and reach out to the different administrators that are members of CALSA. I'm an emeritus member of CALSA and both AXA, and Nicole has real close contact with AXA and its staff. So would you like to advertise elsewhere? No? Yes?
And is there particular groups that you really want to outreach to? I think that would determine kind of what that looks like. So thinking about, like, I know you all want to have a diverse group of applicants in a pool, but think about what does diverse mean, so that we can have a good sense of what that outreach looks like. So I don't know if anyone wants to share a
Yes.
little bit about that. That would be helpful for us.
So I'll just chime in. I'm okay with the organizations that were mentioned. I do think that I do like the fact that was it CASA and CALSA are more network based, and really there's no real, in some ways, extra cost to that. I do think there's a bit of a I wouldn't say an advantage, but there is a distinction as we go out and do our outreach for those who have experience in California versus those who have experience outside of California, because of the uniqueness to what California is with everything that's going on. Sorry, with everything that is happening here in California. So sorry, I'm just getting mute here.
Okay, what I have from our training manual, Nicole, because I have to look it up again, is average advertising expenses run between 150 and 300. So I know Alas is one of the low advertising. AXA, I think, is the one that's 300. So that's the cost, and I don't believe the National Alliance of Black School Educators, NABC, they do 30-day ads, and I would think that theirs is also one of those that's between the 150 range rather than the 300 range.
Yeah, and what's going to vary really is that while they set a range, the reality is that it really depends on how long you want to advertise. And I think that's the most critical piece. But remember, kind of built into your fee is that we are doing the outreach and recruitment as well. Right. And so some of the simple things, like just the fact that we have it on the McPherson website, people who are looking for a job, right, and interested in doing kind of the research on you are going to find that and apply. Right. And that's not necessarily us even doing any outreach. That's just letting it sit there in the space for people to know. So between EdCal, Mac and J, your expense is actually going to be fairly reasonable, I think, if you don't go outreach outside of that space. So it's really determined. It's really up to you to how that, how you're going to determine, the big picture. But when you look at, there was one other fee to think about, which I just had it right in front of me. One of the things that happens towards the end, and this is when you look at the budget, it's not a lot, but when we get towards the end, not only the video interviews for your candidates, right, that you want to put on the short list, but then you're also going to think about, like, when we get to the space where we'll do in person, then we'll still have to make some copies and things like that. And those are all kind of small expenses that go into your budget. So you will not exceed your budget that we share in terms of any expenses. It'll be much more minimal because we won't be doing a lot of traveling outside of the very last meetings, the interviews where we do in person. And even then, like, neither of us, I don't know, Aida, typically, I think you probably won't be spending the night in a hotel. I don't anticipate. Hotels sometimes cost. I wouldn't be staying in a hotel. Bill wouldn't stay in a hotel, maybe a day if he selects. But I think since COVID has kicked in, we have not had any hotel expenses or mileage.
And I will say I was fortunate in the last search that I did where it was in person. It was I had a sister in the community, so I stayed.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Down in, yep.
So I think what we're both saying is that in reality, just having EdCal, having EdJoin, having our website, we have a Twitter account, a LinkedIn account. I mean, the outreach is to thousands of individuals who are out there who are looking for positions. So I guess we could call Sam, find out if they've started to advertise again, but
Okay.
members of CALSA are also AXA members, so.
So it's really up to you. It's really up to
I-
you how deep you want to go. I mean, you can make, you can go down a laundry list and have $1,000 worth of expenses. You can have 250, you can have 500. I mean, really it's going to depend on what you want to do.
I'm personally okay with the recommendation. But Trustee Corzo, I know that if you want some more, I'm also open to that. But I feel like we need to make a decision and move on because we have
Okay.
a number of other things on the
Yep.
agenda here. So
So what I understand is going to Ed join,
Mm-hmm.
AXA,
Uh-huh.
and ALAS, along with our website and the district website. Yes,
And 30 days, I'm sorry, 3 weeks is ideal for EdCal would be the other thing.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's
I think
the
that's the
AXA,
300 of that.
so.
Okay.
I was just going to say that CALSA website says that you can post job postings on there for $125 for 30 days.
Okay, so should we do CALSA rather than ALAS?
I don't know, I'm just putting.
Noelia?
Oh, yeah.
Can you remind me how they're different again?
ALAS is a national organization
Mhm.
and CALSA is California Association of Latin American Administrators, school administrators.
I mean, I don't think I should decide. So anybody else wanna?
Well, I guess the question about it is if we did with a loss, would we also still reach all the California people that are part of that group? Does that cover it basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's what you have to ask yourself, do you want an individual from out of state who happens to fall within a different ethnic group? Do you want someone that has California experience to work with your district who is from one of the equity groups?
So I just give my 2 cents is I do feel like here in California, we do operate a little bit differently. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how everyone else is different than us, but I know that with our, our SIPSAs and our the LCAP and everything else, I think if we want to have a superintendent sort of hit the ground running and have some experience and have everything else, I think, generally someone with California experience would, in my mind, have a higher sort of priority. I'm not discounting someone else coming from out of state, but I just think just someone with that has has maybe a little more experience.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry.
So with that, it may be more beneficial to do CALSA, just to be on the, and remember, we still have a wide net that we cast nationally, but that may be a better fit. And it's about, it's like Aida said, it's about $150 that you would not put into that, that particular piece. So with CALSA, who I think CALSA has recently updated theirs. I don't think they originally used to do advertisement at a fee. I'll have to double check with CASA because I don't recall them having a fee, and that was more recently. So between EdJoin and
CALSA and McPherson.
CALSA, yeah, McPherson.
Okay.
So let's see, so about around the $600 range. It'd be about $600 for advertising.
Okay.
So EdJoin.
Okay. So are we done with advertising the venues? Yes. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay.
Okay, cool. I'll take that also.
And what I'm going to do as far as stakeholder and school community groups, I'm going to send back to the board a listing of what I received, say from other board members, from the superintendent, so that you can see the groups that we have that we'll be holding Zoom meetings with, okay? Or if you know of some and you want to send them to me, go ahead and send them. And then the names and contact information of any people that you want me to do. And I know, Noelia, you sent me a list, so I'm going to send that list to, is it Deanne? Or to, should I send it to Anna?
You should send everything to Anna Alman, and then we will determine from there who can best
Okay.
answer.
And what is her email? Or can you say email?
It's A-L-M-E-N, Anna Alman, A-L-M-E-N, at then our regular email.
Okay.
And Aida, I'll make sure you have that one as well in our stream.
Okay. Okay, now here's the one that we always say takes a little more time. And that's why we save it for the end. It's the identify the selection criteria. We sent you samples of that criteria. And I know that I did receive, Noelia, if you don't mind my saying, I received something back from Noelia where she liked the first one and she changed it a little bit. So I'm going to read that to you. I'm going to read it slowly so that you can see if thumbs up that you agree with the change she made to it. Okay. An educational equity leader and learner who has the moral compass and courage to act upon all decisions through an equity lens. This leader must be passionate yet emotionally intelligent in the demonstration of intentional and strategic leadership driven by data and research to systematically address educational equity gaps through collaboration, learning, and communication. A culturally proficient leader who values and empowers diverse cultures and ethnicities to balance inequities. This leader actively engages in the interruption of policies, practices, and structures that perpetuate institutional racism and all forms of oppression for the direct benefit of students and the community and the larger community. Thumbs up if you'd like to have that as one of your criteria. Noelia, you're
So that would be one, or would we be adding on to that?
that would be one criteria.
Okay.
And I still want you to give me 4 more. Okay.
And just for clarification, so the samples that you gave us, they all represent different criteria, essentially.
Yes.
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 Okay. So thank you. Yeah.
Like you do want, I think one of them was a positive, clear communicator who has a history of valuing the opinions of all stakeholders, a master of conflict resolution, and one who has a history of working closely with the board. That's kind of like a communications one. Someone who's visible, open, honest, approachable, a visionary leader who leads with honesty and integrity. That one really hones in on being honest and having integrity. Someone who's likable, values, and demonstrated record of developing and nurturing strong relationships with staff, unions, and community. So what I want you to do is each one of you has to give me one area that you want to focus on for a criteria. So I'm going to stop talking. I want you to think about it. I know that you had an opportunity to read the sample criteria I sent you. So we're going to keep one, and we want to look at either 3 or 4 more. So if you want someone who understands budget, someone who communicates, works well with the community, someone who understands the curriculum and instruction, understands data and knows what to how to bring around staff so that the focus is on student achievement, looking at data so that they can really bring to you as a board, here are areas that we've improved on, and you want to see that improvement. So, or someone like a manager who understands fiscal, operational, and bonds and facilities. So I'm going to stop talking, and I want you to give me those other 3 to 4 areas you'd like me to focus on. And then what we'll do is we'll put words together and then send them to you so that you can review them, make changes, and then put something together again, going back and forth with the group.
So for me, definitely wanting to focus in on an instructional leader that is using data to drive decision making. So I know that there's a bullet here, around student achievement and being an instructional leader and closing achievement gaps, et cetera. So I think I actually even wonder if there might be some language, Nicole, from the equity resolution has some things in there around data. That's something that we've already
worked on. Okay.
Yeah. So potentially pulling from that with some language. I don't have like words at the top of my head right now in terms of it, but I think utilizing some of what you have here, maybe something from there. And then there's another bullet point around having like a data-driven leader, like courageous data-driven leader. But yeah, I think just like using data to make decisions kind of at every level.
Okay.
So it's not just a curriculum and instruction piece, right? But it's outside of that.
Okay.
I like the one about having a visionary leader who leads with honesty and integrity and builds strong relationships between staff, unions, and community.
Okay.
And maybe squeeze in like communication in there somewhere.
Okay. Lisa?
Yeah, I think from a financial standpoint, I love to look for a superintendent who's had a prominent role. Can you hear me? How about now?
You were just cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. Just from a financial standpoint, I'd love to see somebody who has had experience in parcel tax and bond campaigns.
Okay, kind of like a fiscal, an area of fiscal. Okay.
Yeah.
With
Fiscal
highlighting parcel tax and bonds. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have kind of like an instructional, focus on instructional data decision making, and then the visible, honest, open, kind of approachable person, visionary leader, and then bring in communication to that one bullet, Allison. Okay, Ken, your turn.
I'm sorry, I do like them all. so I have a hard time. I think each of the trustees sort of picked ones that I would have picked as well. So I think, and I think that there are a couple of bullet points that could be combined a little bit. So I don't think I do like them all. So sorry if that's, one thing that wasn't talked about or wasn't mentioned yet was the student achievement gap or so. So I think that could be folded in to a lot of the other ones. So like again, Trustee Warren did talk about, the finances. We do have a lot of stuff going on, and the last thing we want to do is obviously go back into deficit spending, that we were before. And we do have a lot of bond money and everything else. So the finances is there. The communication is a big thing. I actually look at the bullet point about the visionary leader as a little bit differently. When you talk about honesty, integrity, I look at it as more as like sort of the visionary leader sort of thing. But and definitely what Trustee Corzo submitted about, our equity issue, or educational equity. issue.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry, they're all really good.
Okay, here's the one, because you mentioned the achievement gap. One of them does have it. It's an experienced educator who's committed to student achievement is as integral to the culture of the district and each school. The next superintendent must know the best practices in teaching and learning, be able to implement effective curriculum, assist in the selection of purposeful professional development, and employ systems of assessment that all result in increased achievement for all students. This instructional leader should have demonstrated how he or she has implemented strategies to close achievement gaps between groups of students, including differentiated instruction, as well as social emotional learning. San Mateo Foster City School District is looking for a leader with a current knowledge and application of instruction of the local control accountability, the LCAP, and Common Core Standards and the CAST assessment system. So that's a real long one that covers a lot. So I think it covers, some of the areas that you all wanted as far as instruction, but it's a little bit different than the data-driven one. So we're going to do the data-driven, the instructional, educational leader, the open, honest, and integrate communication there, and keep the educational equity leader in there. And Nicole, you're going to work on the one that Shara was sharing regarding, I guess it was that you have in your equity committee.
So they have a board resolution around equity, and there's some language we could just incorporate in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like that to be a separate one rather than to put it into the first one.
Yeah, I think what I heard Shara say was more around data-driven decision maker, which, so yeah, I think that was totally separate from the equity leader one. However, I will say all of them will eventually overlap. So I think while you want to highlight what are those key criteria points, the reality is that equity probably, just based on what you want to focus on, may infuse itself in all of them to some degree at some point. So but yeah, I'll definitely pull some language from there just around metrics and decision making. So yeah.
Okay, so for the board, just so that you know, what we'll do is we'll work on ensuring that we have something on finance, something that's the data-driven, which Nicole will work on, and look at the one that Noelia sent me, and the visible, open, and honest, approachable person. So we'll send it to you. Probably, Nicole, I want to give us a timeline. Today's Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's try to get it to the board by Wednesday.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Do
I
it
think
and
that's
then
plenty
send
of
me a
time.
thumbs up, or modify the language. We're not married to any of these statements, so please feel free to modify or change it if something doesn't sound right or it's like too vague. Okay, that's the criteria end of it, and we did it really well. You guys deserve a hand on that.
Well, Aida, I just want to double check. Did we do the preference piece versus requirements? Did we already cover that with them?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. Since that shows up too.
Now, just so that you know, all administrators have to have a master's, right, Nicole?
For the criteria for the superintendents, they actually don't. So let's back up a little bit.
Yeah,
so
no,
yeah, I think we back up. So there are some things that you have as like non-negotiables, right? Like these are the things we want in our next superintendent. And so when you think about what the criteria is just to qualify to be an administrator, to be a superintendent, you want to think about like, what are those kind of bare requirements, right? But then also, what are those things that you prefer to have? So like having a doctorate, having a master's aren't requirements to be in those positions, but they are things that sometimes are preferred. And so when you look at the criteria for superintendent, like you will have superintendents who've never been a principal, for example, right? Who have not kind of gone through the traditional positions you may have, thought might be the case. Every once in a while you'll see superintendents who have like this kind of business background, right?
Hello?
I think, yeah. Is that Lisa's? Lisa's, I think yours is lagging a little bit, I think. Right, I don't know, it's weird. So, but Lisa, did you have something you were saying? Because it kind of like you chimed in, but I'm wondering if it's lagging. It might be delayed.
I've got too many people,
Okay,
most likely, because my internet sucks
Oh,
right now.
okay. All right.
I'll just email it. It's going to be easier.
okay.
Or you may want to turn your video off for a second and talking. It could be that too. But yeah, so we wanted to just talk about the criteria in terms of your preferences versus requirements, like having a doctorate degree, having a certain language that you want, having certain experience at elementary level, right? Because you have a K-12 district. All of those things are things that we want to make sure that we can have listed as, you know, as you prefer. And then some things could be non-negotiables. We require these things. We do always caution boards to just remember that, you know, the more like, requirements you create, the more narrow the you know opportunity is for people to get that position. So what you don't want to do is have it so narrow that you kind of lose a lot of people who could actually be great candidates. I mean, another one is just the experience in themselves, right? Do you want a sitting superintendent, right? Typically we say don't say that, because then you kind of really put yourself in kind of a small narrow box. So that's kind of the spirit of what we think about when we talk about preferences versus requirements, which we do place on the advertisement as well. So that's important for us to have. So maybe you can weigh in a little bit on what your thoughts are. Go ahead, Naida.
Okay. And I was going to say, like, for example, the qualifications that we're talking about are that must have a master's degree and teaching experience, okay? Or must have a master's degree, teaching and administrative experience at the elementary level or at the K level. But you prefer someone who's bilingual Spanish and has charter school experience, for example. You can put those down. Those are preferences. Or someone who is bilingual Spanish and has a doctoral degree. So it's really what the board, what would you as a board like to see as the qualifications, whether it's a master's, a doctorate, or just teaching and administrative experience? Or do you want someone who's had district level, cabinet level experience? Because then you know that they've worked with boards and you know that they've been part of a cabinet with a superintendent, assistant superintendents, and so on. That kind of will eliminate those individuals who have probably been a principal for 17 years and have decided they're ready to be a superintendent. Right, Nicole? Or they've been
true.
For 30 years and now they want to be a superintendent.
Do you guys have a recommendation for us on this? Because I feel like, you know, like there's definitely obviously a lot of things we could put in here in terms of, you know, criteria, and we can ask for a whole bunch of things. And obviously there's a sort of a wish list of what we would all want. But again, I don't want to, you know, sort of in our limited experience of trying to go for a superintendent search, you know, check the box of saying, oh, well, I only want, you know, X, and that eliminates like 90% of the, you know, the potential, you know, candidates.
Right.
So,
okay. So here's what I mean, I'm going to recommend, and Nicole, you can push back on it. I would recommend that the qualifications include someone with district level experience at the K or pre-K 8 level, you know, administrative, the district level experience at a K-8 school district. Because that's what you are. You're a K-8 school district. You want someone who just comes in with high school experience. And, you know, they don't have that elementary experience, and elementary and secondary are two different monsters.
yeah, no, and I think, yeah, I mean, obviously that probably would include everybody, but yes, but I would not, definitely TK through 8 is definitely, you know, the experience we would want. I mean, if you only have high school experience, I think we're a different world. So, yeah.
So would it be TK administrative experience and district level experience?
I think Noel, you had something to contribute to
Okay.
that. Mhm.
Noelia?
Uh-oh, we can't hear you, Noelia. It cut off. Yeah. That's all
Here we
could
go.
hear.
Double
There
mute.
you go.
Okay. What I was gonna say is, so in terms of the district level experience, so let's just, I guess I want a little clarity on that. So that means like a district administrator who works at the district office versus like a principal. Is that right?
Correct. Someone, or, you know, what a district level experience and or cabinet level experience. Because you can be like a director of categoricals and not be part of cabinet.
Yeah, and structures do vary from district to district. So sometimes, you know, a certain position may be considered executive cabinet, another position may not, and people have different roles. So I think you want to be open enough to say district level. I agree with Aida, but also be mindful of, you know, what that executive cabinet experience. As we're doing our vetting and recruiting, we often keep that in mind. That is something that would be helpful, but it doesn't necessarily have to be listed. I think you want to be very clear about what those things are so that people know, like, this may not be the best match for you if you don't have this particular qualification. So
I think like for that one specifically, like, I guess like the only instance in which I think if they're like a completely outside candidate new to our district, I think I would definitely want them to have district experience. But if they're like in our district and they know our district and they're a principal, I would still be interested in those candidates. But I wanted to also talk about so I've been thinking about like the language thing. I think like having someone be bilingual in Spanish would be great, but I think that for me would be more of a preference. And I say that because I was humbled by an experience in our own district where like there was a position that I felt really strongly should have a Spanish speaker. And I was a little upset about it, but then I met this person and the work that they did. And like, I was like, whoa, that was like my own, like there could have been a Spanish speaker that just didn't have that type of experience and wouldn't have been able to be as effective. And so like, that is something that I try to be very mindful of now. So I think if we could say, for example, like proven track record with cultural competence or you know, like some other way of saying like, okay, you don't need to speak the language 100% or a second language 100%, but like have a proven record of working with diverse communities and empowering them. That I think would be a good requirement versus the language.
And I think all of that is actually aligned to kind of some of what I was thinking, Noelia, and just generally is, I think I would love for us to focus on kind of skill and experience, like skill set versus like you need to check these boxes. I just think in general with hiring, like it's, yeah, I think I don't want us to get like too boxed in, and it sounds like you guys that's what you're recommending anyways, right? Because I do think that a lot of times people are able to bring a skill set that is going to meet a need without having like A, B, C path, right? And I think it's really good to ensure that we're leaving that open. I think that's kind of what you're saying, Noelia, in terms of kind of like the skill set that folks are bringing in. So I think if highlighting that is going to be, I think, much more important than like the basic qualifications sort of. So I would just say that we keep the basic qualifications as kind of little as possible and really focus on the skills.
And so like some of the additional requirements, you can say someone who's had teaching experience, someone who's experienced as an assistant superintendent or district level, knowledge of California programs, funding, and ed code. That's 3 real simple, kind of not necessarily, you don't even have to have preferences. It could just be, you know, these are the additional requirements that we want. Do you want us to come up with something and then send it with the criteria?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And then I just would be remiss if I didn't mention that I did say TK through 8th, but we also have a preschool, preschool, so there's even the younger ones that we have too. But I wouldn't necessarily say that there's not, if you're looking at the criteria, I wouldn't have that as a box saying you need preschool experience, but
No.
we do have a preschool, yes. So,
Okay.
but yes, if you, my thought is,
Okay, well.
write something up and then send it to us.
And again, I recommend for anyone outside of your district that they do have some kind of district level experience. So I'm going to put that in there. You can either, exit out or say no, because what you want to do is you also want to, have someone who has that experience. And I'm not sure when you look at your criteria that if they don't have district level experience, then they may not have the experience with partial tax and bonds because they haven't been at that district level.
Right.
Okay. So I'll send it, I'll send you something. It's going to be real simple. It's not going to be like check the box, I meet all this, but just kind of, here's some additional requirements that we're going to have. And I think, Ken, I think you say, someone who does understand California Ed Code or California experience, because it's true, other states are different. They don't have LCAP, they don't have LCFF, and the way things are done in those districts or those states are different. Having worked in Arizona and Washington, I can attest to that. So, okay.
Yeah, we'll fiddle with the language, I think, because again, just to reiterate, you don't want to put yourselves in a box where then you give out the message that you're so strict about what that language is that people don't think that they can even apply for it. And so we don't want to scare people away by thinking, okay, that doesn't apply to me. Even down to the elementary experience, I think how we word it is important, because also, you may have folks who've been in a K-12 district and obviously have experience across the board, not just elementary. And so it's just important just not to put yourselves too much in a box. So using the word preference versus requirement will make a difference. And I can definitely, put our heads together and kind of wrestle with the wording. But I think you all are onto it. Sounds like you have a vision for this person without putting it all in a box, right? And being open also to the possibilities, because that's the other piece, is that you have great people who can come and become superintendents for you, whether they're a new superintendent to the position or one that's currently sitting as a superintendent. And it's really about getting the right fit for you. And so your criteria helps guide that. And so we look forward to putting our heads together this next 24 hours or so to kind of wrestle with the language and get that part solidified so you can get your brochure out and start advertising. And with
that statement, the brochure, I'm going to share a brochure with you. Okay. So this is kind of like a picture where we have kids and we have your district. And then we have the position that's listed and the community, your community. Then we talk about your district and more pictures of your kiddos. And then like the timeline that shows this kind of thing. So it's a 4-page brochure that we have available, and we'll send to your district and have it posted on the website and have it be available for individuals to review.
Can we clarify the need and what you guys need from us from the district? I know the district is, everyone, again, especially considering we're within our 2 weeks of reopening schools, and so there's a huge sort of demand on a lot of people right now. I mean, more so than before.
Okay.
Can you clarify what we need?
Okay, what we need for the brochure is just a brief statement about the community. San Mateo, Foster City. For example, here's one, I'm just going to read one sentence. Just 55 miles north of San Francisco in the urban heart of wine country, you'll find Santa Rosa, a city with a cool vibe and vibrant culture waiting to be explored. Okay, And then you have the district. Blank School District is known as a gem of a district in Sonoma County. The district serves a student population of approximately blah, 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 blah. So those two things, I can go, like, for example, this is what I did with one district. I went to the, what is it? The city's kind of like ambassador and wrote kind of what the community was like. And then I think on your website, you have something about the district already. So I can do a lot of cut and pasting, but I do need pictures so that we can put your kiddos on the brochure, like the colors. What are your district colors, your school colors? And like all your names and how many years you've served. And that's what you've been giving me. And then after that, it's stuff that we will put on there. For example, the position and the criteria. So once I have the criteria and you guys are okay with it, we'll add that to the brochure. And we also add the timeline.
Right. Can I make
Ken, just to give you just clarity too, is so you don't have to remember all that right now. There's also a document that would just email over to your point of contact, and it has a lot of things listed there to remind you what we need. Yeah, so that same document will provide that. But Aida's sharing kind of the big picture of this is the kind of things we need. So your point of contact can help, and then we can collaborate on pictures and things like that for the particular brochure.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just think just on the community piece, I think that there is a bunch of stuff that's out there, even our RFP that we put out for the proposal that you guys responded to. I know Trustee Proctor and I sort of worked on that, and we added some things there. But right. I feel like you guys could probably piece together some of those things and just, maybe give it to us, and, give it to Anna, and then she'll distribute it to everybody.
Okay.
In terms of that, and then we can work on getting the pictures and what you guys need. I just feel like, maybe if you guys take the first stab at it all and then give it to us, that would really help in terms of the workload that we have.
And I've done that with districts. I kind of go on the web, on the internet, and find little things. So, okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
And that's it. That's from our end. We're done.
Awesome. What next steps? So you're going to send us email with, you were talking about criteria and also the requirements. We're going to flesh out the calendar a little bit more. The brochure you're going to work on in terms of what we just talked about. And then in terms of, I'm not sure if there's anything else I'm missing, but I would assume, are we meeting again? Do we need to set up another meeting? Or are we basically, it's off and you guys are running?
Okay, I'm gonna, unless you really are eager for another meeting, I'm gonna say we're up and running, because right now we have our next meeting scheduled with you all for March 25th. I will be sending emails, so be on the lookout for emails from myself and Nicole. And we're gonna have Bill chime in on some of this, so that, because he's a real good wordsmither, and have him also participate. Unfortunately, he had another conflict today, or else he would have been with us. Okay?
No, that helps. I don't know if there are any other questions or comments from the trustees. Anything? No? Okay.
So just to help with next steps, Ken, just to give you all just clarity, because once we leave this meeting, there may be things that come up for you all individually. So always feel free to reach out. Aida's the lead, so she will be the main person responding. It makes it a little easier than trying to have more than one, dialogue going. But the other thing is just always remember there's a timeliness to this. So I know you all are pretty good about your board packets and preparing, but just know that once you get something from us, there's a pretty quick turnaround a lot of times. So just always just keep an eye out. And if there's any questions, just let us know. And of course, Ken as president, will be obviously in touch with you in many ways, but the point of contact is also it. So, because every once in a while things will come up. And so always feel free to reach out as an individual board member.
Yes.
So you don't have to wait between meetings, because sometimes that's pretty tough. And then we'll also be checking in with you periodically just to see how things are going. As things evolve, something may come up. It's always important for us to have a heads up, because we don't live in the same space as you. And so, your community, all the nuances. So always keep us posted as well if you think it's information that will help us. in the process. So it is a collaborative effort for sure. But I just wanted to say that as, you know, in your next steps. And it was a lot today, so we'll follow up with you as always and give you updates, which is always helpful because it's hard to remember all this amongst all the other stuff you have going on. So
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for mentioning the timeliness. I know that, you know, we are sort of, once we sort of set this calendar agenda, or actually, do we actually agendize it as a vote to approve the calendar?
I think you did.
Sorry, so we will need to do that as a motion, as one of the last steps for us. But, you know, yes, definitely the timing of our responses are pretty key, considering that we only have a few months to get this done. And the more that we sort of shortcut and get you guys our responses, the faster we can move. With that being said, do we have, before you send the brochure out, are we?
You'll have an opportunity to see it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I think before we need a motion for actually approving the calendar, but do we, well, it's listed as superintendent search process, but I'm assuming it's the calendar that you guys want the vote on.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Before we get to that, Trustee Proctor, it looked like you chimed in or you wanted to say something.
I was just kind of thinking, but then I think I figured I kind of settled myself down. But the next time we meet will be after all of the stakeholder Zoom meetings. So I guess if like you're not finding enough attendance, or I mean, I'm just wondering if you're not getting enough engagement from the community, will you like let us know ahead of time? And I don't know, maybe we can help put it out there even more, just because I think by March 25th, you said we're going to be reviewing the input report. And so I would hate to come to that meeting and find that like people didn't show up or people didn't.
No, one of the things that I want to do once the calendar is approved, we already have the 4 community meetings that we're going to hold. And those are the ones that you really want a lot of input in. So as soon as you approve the calendar with those 4 dates that we modified, then we're going to ask our point of contact to blast the community with your opportunity to provide input to the board for the next superintendent. Attend the stakeholder community meetings. And those are open to the public. Your teachers, your parents, community members, anyone can attend those meetings. Okay? And we'll let you know. I mean, after the first week, if we found out that 2 people showed up, we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any other comments from the trustees before we wrap everything up? No. Okay, we need, does someone want to make a motion to approve the calendar, the selection process calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the calendar.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. And our last item on the agenda is our adjournment. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Great, thank you, and I vote yes as well. Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.